recording. Okay, so I want to just show really simple way of doing the glow samples. Now the trick is there's some areas where if you're not paying attention or you don't know where they are, you can render it and be like, why is it not rendering a glow? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up a model I made quickly. Okay. So looks somewhat familiar. And then let me just kind of roll back as an option of how I did this too. Because I noticed some of the models, all the models are looking really good that I've received. Some of the models have some little areas that might cause you problems down the road. And I'll pull some of those up as the class goes on and I'll let you know what ones they are. So, but if we're looking at this, and this is the simple base for the tea kettle, let's say. What I've got is 3 main bodies. So that's, oops, let's go with this. That's the primary overall base. Then this is the center push button. And this is me going by memory, so I think this is what it looks like. And then that's going to be the ring that glows. And then I have one other item that is hidden in here that is going to be the part that lights up. So with that said, if I come in and I just do a quick cross section, it's not going to give me what I want. So you can see here, let me turn that off. What I basically did is I made the boss, just extruded a hole down in. I came in, I extruded up what's going to be the dial or the push button, whatever that is. I also made a ring. And now you'll notice that the ring doesn't go all the way down. It would be whatever a normal natural thickness is. So it's not going to be a giant tube that goes all the way down that's going to glow. So that's no different than any other product out there. And again, if we want to try to make this look as real as possible, we want to try to simulate things as much as the real world can do so that the physics apply to it. Now, what I also did was I needed to create an object that is going to act as my light source. So I just took this surface here off of that ring and I just did a quick offset so that I then had that there that could glow. Now, like I say, we want to try to make it as realistic as possible, but at the same time we want to take some shortcuts because we're not quite there yet where we're doing the super photorealistic renderings. Because there's each step that I'm taking you through dives us a little deeper each time. So that's kind of the base model that I would set up. So I've got the base. Now, of course, that's going to be blown out into many more parts. I've got the one dial that's going to be in the center that I can apply a texture to or a shader separate than this one. I've got the ringlet that's going to be the clear plastic that's going to glow. And then I've got the offset surface that is going to emulate my light. Did I hit record? Is it recording? Yeah, it's recording. Good Lord. Okay. So everybody saw how I did that. Pretty simple, correct? Any questions about that? Okay. Let's bring it into Keyshot. Okay, so here we're in Keyshot. just to remind everybody, we've got our 3 objects here. Now, if this was a bigger one, I would take the time and go through and just rename them. Just so that it would be quicker for me to grab and move things around, especially as the model gets more complicated. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to just apply my shaders. And for this one, I want just if I recall, it's just like a light textured black. So whenever I think of light textured blacks, I think of Mold-Tec. And I usually like to start with a 1010, which is kind of an industry standard. So you can see here, if I just drag it over top of this, it assigns it to everything. Where if I come over here, then it assigns it just to that object. Now, remember, there are some downloaded Mold-Tec things already built in, but if you want considerably more, we can go to our cloud library. Let's try that again. And then just type in Mold-Tec. And then you can see there is a whole lot of standard Mold-Tecs. Have you guys seen the Mold-Tec book? No? Yes? Anyone? Okay. So I'll bring that in next time I'm there, and I can leave it there. And I'll just give you guys a quick overview of what it is when I'm there. So at the heart of it, though, is when you need a texture applied to a material, that texture gets applied in the tool. And there are industry standards. So kind of like Pantone books, when you want to spec a color, if you want to spec a texture, you spec it from a Mold-Tec book, and that is what the manufacturer matches that texture to. So right now, I've applied this Mold-Tec 1010. If I don't change anything to it, that's exactly what it's going to look like when I get my part back. So that's the nice thing about using those. So, but as I said, you know, it's one of those things where I'm going to zoom in and I'm looking at this. Let me just make my changes as I go. So I'm going to double click my Mold-Tec. I'm going to increase my roughness. I'm going to increase the roughness. We're going to go into our textures. And I want to, I think, yeah, I'm going to make it smaller. Come on. There we go. So we'll get that a little bit finer texture. Check the bump here. It's at 0.25. And I'm going to say when I look at this, now this is where I would want to have, so exactly like I'm doing here to get this texture, I would have a detailed picture of the product. Now, you guys have the models in front of you, so you can take a look at it. But if I wanted to see what this texture was going to be, I would have zoomed in, get that close-up picture this close in my frame, and then I'd be using that as reference. Because it may not be a texture, I think it is. But, so we've got that texture dropped in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the texture in for this button. Let's get that off the screen. If I recall, this kind of had a metal look to it. So we're going to do a anodized brushed. Okay. That doesn't... Oh, that's anodized polished. Okay, whoops. Let me go back here. There we go. I thought I had that. So there you can kind of see that the brushness is on there. That seems a little bit big of a grain to me. So again, we want to avoid the dragging and dropping. We want to have that picture and get it as close as we can. If it's one of those things where you can't get it that close, you know, send me a picture and say, Shivas, here's where I'm at. I can't get it to look like that. Because for this, we're going to come in and we're going to say, let me just go to my textures, because we know that these lines are a texture and it's a bump map. So what we want to do then is we're going to come down and we're going to increase the length of the groove so that these parts are more elongated. And you can kind of see how it stretches them across a little bit. So let me just... Now we also want to get the width down a little bit so that they're a little bit more finer detail. Grain size. Let me just see. Sometimes I forget what it does. So then what I do is I'll just send it to one extreme and then go to the other so I can see what's happening. We've got that. We've got mapping type is box. We want to put it onto the part, ideally, because we just want it right there. Width and height. So height gets deceptive because this is in the U and the V. So when they say height, it's length and width, basically. Remember, if you apply this and it shows up on the underside or the other side and you don't want it there, as you can see down in here, what you do is you turn off two-sided. So that's where a lot of people saw that they put a graphics on something and then it was showing through the other side. So then that's a matter of just turning off the two-sided. Okay, so we'll say that's good enough for now. If we want to, we could get even more detailed and changing the color, but we're going to say that's good enough. I'm not quite sure. I'm not getting the... Oh, here we go. So this is so anodized has a film on it. That's kind of what makes it the effect. So let's just see if I can turn that up. So I just wanted to get it to be a little bit brighter. And we're going to say that's good. Let's toss up, come back to our scene. We'll toss up the box. So I want to make sure that I'm getting some kind of contrast there. Not getting any real reflection because I have nothing in the scene. So just to see if we have something that we want, I'm going to just dump in quickly an environment. So you can see here, once I get the environment and the lighting on, that's way too much. So let me go back. And we'll come back and we're going to turn down that refractive. Okay, and maybe I don't necessarily like how it's going vertical, horizontal. What I could always do is come in and rotate it. So you can see that you can start playing with it a lot, depending on what you want. Now, what we want to do next is we're going to come back to our scene, and we're going to take the ring, and we want this to either be clear. So we have to look like this. What does that button do? If that if that ring has a tinted blue and the light behind it is white, and that's what lights it up, then we want to make sure, then what we want to do is we want to take the materials, and we're just going to go into plastic here. We'll go to clear, shiny, and I'm just going to go with a clear shiny plastic white for now. We want to put that clear shiny plastic in there. Let us just turn down the refractive index there a little bit. And if it's a clear shiny and it's the light that makes it seem blue, red, or green, then we want to keep that clear, and we're going to use the light in the background, or that we created that object, to make the clear plastic be a different color. If not, what we can do is we can come in and we'll make this light be the color and add it and have it glow. So either way works. Really what it comes down to is what looks good. So for this first example, what we're going to do is we're just going to leave it like this, and I'm going to light up that ring that was below. And what this does is, by doing this, is as the light comes through, the glow comes through, it's going to distort the glow and give us that refraction and reflection that would happen when it goes through a piece of plastic. So we've got that. Let's go back to our scene. Okay, so for this, we're going to take that object and we're going to turn it into a light. So let's go to our lights. And we have a variety that we can play with. For the intensive purposes for this, we're going to use Emissive. And what Emissive is exactly that. Well, hold on. Let me, before I say something too wrong here. Give me a definition. Yeah, that is emitted by an object, a glow or something. So what we're doing is we're going to turn this object and have it glow. We could also do this, and I'll show you if we did it to the ring. So let's just, we're going to grab the emissive warm. We're going to dump it on here. And you can kind of see already that it's got a little bit of a glow effect to it. You can see how that with that clear ring part, it's lighting up this inner area here. If I put this on, what's happening now is it is lighting up on here. One thing also I forgot to tell you, and I'll see if I can change this now. See, you're going to get some of this fragmentation when you have a clear object and it's touching another object that is edge on edge. It doesn't know what to render and what not to. So when you're doing something like this, let's just come back in here. We'll go to Edit Sketch. You can see what I've done is this is line on line. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that it's just ever so slightly off, and I'm just really eyeballing this for now. Same as this one. So we'll hit update. Exit out of the sketch. Then we'll go back and update Keyshot. And for some reason, when it updated it, I lost a few of the things. So let's go back. Oh, well, that was weird. Huh. I don't know what happened, but you can see that it changed. It defaulted my names back to what they were from what I had changed it. It had also removed 2 of the materials that I already applied. So let's just reapply those materials. So we're going to go back to the emissive here. And you're not going to see anything because that's a solid color. If I turn that off, you can see it glowing there again. Now let's come back in and go to our plastic. And the reason I'm using plastic, and some people would use, oh, well, glass is the same thing. No, plastic and glass have different refraction and reflectivity characteristics, which basically means how light passes through them and what happens when it goes through the other side varies. So that's why you want to simulate the proper materials. So we'll come in here, we'll do that. So there now you can kind of see, you can see the edge of the bottom down there, but you're not getting that same refraction that was going on along the edges. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay. So here we've got this. Oh, what happened? Seriously? Oh no. Okay. So, and I might come back and say that's still not bright enough. But, so what I'm going to do now is let's just dive in. We'll do a quick rendering. Let's just change the background to color. We'll just go with a simple white. And if we come in and we look at our materials, we're at our emissive warm. So the intensity is a 3. We've made sure that it's visible to the camera, visible in reflections, visible in shadows, and two-sided. Two-sided means that it's going to light up on both sides of the surface. Now, visible to camera is fine because we're not actually going to see it. And when I say visible to camera, if I come in here, well, let me just do this for dramatic effect. So here it's visible to camera. Like we showed before, it's not visible to camera, but it's still lighting up the scene. So for this, it doesn't really matter because we know it's going to be there. So now what we can do is come in, double click the layer. Let's just turn that back on. And you can play with the intensity, which is exactly that. So we're going to drop it down, nothing. Crank it up. And you can see it doesn't really look like it's getting brighter. I can turn this up to 50. All it seems to be doing is making it whiter and whiter. Even from a standpoint of where I've changed the color, it still doesn't look any brighter. Getting all the way up to 100. Now, the reason for that, let's just drop it back down to 4, is under our lighting and our imagery. So first we want to have global illuminations turned on at all times when you're using glass or reflectivity. It's what allows it to have the number of ray bounce or rays bouncing through it, and it makes it more realistic. It takes more time to render, and if you have a item that has a whole lot of clear material, it takes a long time to render. And if you've got lighting going through all those different materials, it takes even longer because there's much more mathematical calculations. So, but under image, what we need to do is turn on bloom. And picture bloom as exactly that. It's the light glowing, it's blooming. You've got this in Photoshop as well, for anybody who has ever done the glow in Photoshop. So it's almost the same thing. But we're going to turn on bloom. And I think, let me just go back to my material here. We'll turn up our bloom intensity. You can see it's only at 0.5. We're going to get our radius up, so the number of pixels that it's going to go through. Let me just do a quick render. Okay, so you can see how it's lighting up in the rendering. Let me just see if I can do this here. And now that I've done my first render pass, it's showing up in my screen. So did everybody notice that prior to doing the rendering, it was not glowing? Did you guys notice that? Did I mention that? So that's, I don't know why it has to do that. It's almost as if it has to calculate it all first. And you can also see that it doesn't look the same. So if you're doing a screenshot, awesome. But you can see here where it's the glass, there's some reflectivity in there that's not showing up on this. And that's just because it's got to calculate it more as a rendering. And you can also see that this is not as subtle as what I have in here. So this is where sometimes you've got to do that render and test. Now I believe you can adjust it here and see it real time within reason. So we'll go there, and then we can come back to our image. Bloom intensity, again, is how much is it going to look like it's glowing. Bloom radius is how much of the surrounding area does it go. And for this, it measures it in pixels. So you can see by really turning it up, it's almost as if it's turning up the intensity as well. Bloom threshold. Okay. So bloom radius, how wide is this going to be? Bloom threshold, come on, is how powerful it is as well. So you can see that you can do a lot of tweaking. Now, let's say we spend time and we do a massive rendering. Or, well, first let's do this. We're going to go environment. We're going to come over here, go environment, because we all like the black on black on black. So let's just come into the studio. We'll go all black, say goodbye. That's the only thing that lights up because it is a light source. Let's come in and we'll just do a simple one light. So again, black studio. I'm going to add a light. You can see that it's already showing it there. I like rectangles. If I pick on the pin, I can then kind of move it around to where I want it. And let's say that's what I'm going to want. Sorry, I'm fussing with it too much. So there's that. Now if I go and I do a rendering, I just want to show you something that you can do in the rendering that can be of great help. This is something that was just added in one of the most recent updates. So we're going to go render. And you saw over here how I can do all these adjustments. Intensity, denoise, things like that to the actual image. There we go. Well, this icon is the same as this icon, so I can come over and now I can look at it and say, okay, you know what, that seemed too intense. Let me adjust my blooms without having to go back and re-render everything. If I want to be old school fancy, I can even do well, I guess the vignette doesn't work on a black background. I can go in and add some denoise to get rid of some of the, well, basically noise that happens in the renderings. It's kind of like adding Gaussian, not Gaussian blur, but noise in Photoshop. So you can also come in and duplicate a style and then make an adjustment and change it. I can also come in and start adjusting colors for the lighting. Oops, let's go with that. It's kind of hard to do with this because it's in a black background, but I can then start going, okay, well, let me adjust the lighting here a little bit. We're going to adjust the lights, the whites. Let's add some color. And you can do a whole lot of adjustments in here. So the only color is blue. So I can adjust that. But let's say we don't want any of that. Now don't forget, as we're looking at these persuasive shots that we want to do, really think about, again, find product renderings that you can emulate. So one of the things is coming in and coming to your light. Do more than just drop it in. So for this, we're going to elongate it. I don't know why it's doing that curved like that, but so let's say that's what we want. Nah, that's looking horrible. But let's say we want to get a little bit of the color adjustment onto it. Not much, just enough so that it's got a little bit of a blue lighting in there to complement that. Or if you've got kind of a gold look to it, you know, different things like that, making it more so than just, you know, the standard lighting. Okay. Questions about doing the glow? No. Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording here.